Billionaire sees gardener, wearing his dead mum's ring. What he learns next. The morning fog clung to the vineyard like a secret too long kept. Dew dripped from the grapevines, painting silver trails in the early light. Nathan Elridge stood at the window of his estate, coffee in hand, watching a man in a faded hat trim the hedges near the west garden. There was nothing remarkable about the movement, steady, practiced, until a flash of gold caught the sun. Nathan's breath hitched. He leaned forward. The gardener pushed a branch aside with gloved hands, and again the gold glinted. Familiar, oval-shaped, green gem center. It couldn't be. That ring was buried with his mother. The hedge trimmer whirred softly in the distance, but Nathan Elridge couldn't hear it over the pulse in his ears. He stepped back from the window, coffee sloshing over his wrist. His mother's ring. Her signature emerald solitaire with the tiny fleur-de-lis engraving only he and she had known about. He hadn't seen that ring in over 30 years. He shouldn't be seeing it now. By the time he made it down the limestone steps and across the flagstone patio, the gardener had moved deeper into the side garden. Nathan paused behind a row of lavender, half hidden by the waist-high blooms. He watched the man, mid-60s, maybe older, moving slowly but with certainty, like someone who didn't need to measure twice. Nathan's voice came sharp, almost involuntary. "Excuse me." The man straightened slowly, turned. Sunlight filtered through the oak canopy, lighting the side of his weathered face. He looked up without flinching. No startled jerk, no stammered reply, just a quiet nod. "Morning, sir." Nathan blinked. "That ring," he said, pointing. "Where did you get it?" The man glanced down at his gloved hand. For a split second, something shifted in his face, tension or recognition. But it vanished just as quickly. He tugged the glove off slowly, revealing the ring in full. Gold band, green gem, delicate engraving barely visible in the light. Nathan stepped closer, voice low. "That belonged to my mother." The man looked him dead in the eye. "I know." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan's stomach turned. "What do you mean you know? That ring was buried with her." The man looked down, then back up again. "I believe it's yours now." There was something disarming in his voice, something almost familiar, but Nathan's brain raced past it. His mother's jewelry had been tightly managed, documented, appraised. After her death, everything was sealed or buried. The only exception had been her wedding ring, and this wasn't it. "You need to come with me," Nathan said, already turning toward the house. "I can't," the man replied quietly. Nathan spun back. "You can't?" "I'm not supposed to be here." Nathan stared. "You're on my payroll." "Not officially." The man took a breath. "I just came to tend the south rose beds. Didn't think anyone would be here this early." Nathan froze. The south rose beds were his mother's pride. They hadn't bloomed properly in decades. No one had mentioned tending them. "Who are you?" he asked, voice tighter now. The man looked down at the ring, turned it slowly. "I used to work here, a long time ago." Nathan narrowed his eyes. "Name?" "Elias," the man said simply. The name hit Nathan like a distant echo. He didn't know why, but it did. Maybe from an old staff record, a name his mother once mentioned in passing. He pulled out his phone. No bars. Of course not. The East Garden always killed reception. He looked back at Elias, but the man had turned away, crouching again at the roses, as if nothing had happened. Nathan stood there, stunned. This man, wearing the most intimate relic of his mother's life, was trimming the flowers she once whispered to. But no one had mentioned hiring a new gardener. He didn't know it yet, but Elias had never truly left. He had only been waiting for the right season to return, and now the past Nathan never knew was blooming back to life. Nathan didn't move for a long moment. His chest felt tight, and his hand still hovered near his useless phone, as though clinging to some kind of control. The rational explanation, had to be one, was theft. Maybe the ring had been stolen years ago, somehow resurfacing in the hands of this elderly gardener who conveniently claimed to have worked here before. But when Nathan's father died 10 years back, the inventory had been exact, down to the last teaspoon. Nothing had been missing. Nothing ever went missing from the Elridge estate. And yet, here was Elias. "Where did you really get it?" Nathan pressed, stepping closer, voice cutting through the garden's stillness. Elias kept his eyes fixed on the roses. His hands trembled slightly, but he didn't stop pruning. "It was a gift," he said at last, Nathan's jaw locked. "From who?" Elias finally looked up. His eyes were pale blue, rimmed with age, but steady. "From your mother." The air between them shifted, heavy, absurd. Nathan barked a laugh that carried no humor. "My mother didn't give things like that away, especially not that ring. She wore it until the day she—" He cut himself short, throat tightening. Elias didn't flinch. He simply set down the shears and pulled a folded cloth from his pocket, wiping the dirt from his hands. "Some things you don't find in inventories, sir. Some things you carry quietly." Nathan's mind spun. This man was either delusional, a liar, or something worse. But the quiet conviction in his tone gnawed at him. "Enough," Nathan snapped, trying to reclaim ground. "If you don't explain yourself properly, I'll call security. Right now." Elias gave a faint smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Do that, and they'll just send me away again, like last time." The words landed like stones. Nathan blinked. "Again?" Elias slipped the ring back under his glove. "You were just a child. You wouldn't remember." Nathan stepped back, suddenly uneasy. There was a tug in his memory, a faint impression of a voice humming near the old fountain, of strong hands lifting him high to pluck a grape from the arbor. A face he never placed because it was always blurred by time. Was it possible? No. His father had always said their staff was temporary, disposable. People came and went. He never remembered names. But his mother, she remembered everything. Nathan swallowed hard, fighting off the thought. "I don't believe you," he said, though his voice cracked slightly. "Belief isn't required," Elias said quietly, returning to the roses. "The truth blooms whether you tend it or not." Nathan felt his pulse quicken. This wasn't just a ring. It was a door creaking open, one his father had sealed long ago. And stepping through it might change everything he thought he knew about his family. Nathan turned toward the house, ready to demand answers from the old staff records, when Elias called after him with 5 words that made his blood run cold. "Your mother never wanted this." Nathan froze at the threshold of the patio door, the words echoing like a ghost through the garden. "Your mother never wanted this." He turned slowly. Elias was standing upright now, shears dangling loosely at his side, eyes fixed not on the roses but on Nathan himself. "What are you talking about?" Nathan demanded, though his voice was softer than before. "Never wanted what?" Elias didn't answer right away. He looked around the estate as if weighing how much the walls might still be listening. "There are things you deserve to know," he said finally, "but not here, not like this." Nathan's chest tightened. "If you have answers, you'll give them now." Elias's gaze didn't falter. "You think I don't want to? I was told to keep silent for decades. I kept that promise, but silence, it rots a man from the inside." He exhaled, voice shaking. "And I've rotted enough." The admission made Nathan falter. He wasn't used to vulnerability, not from men like Elias, weathered and unshaken. "Why come back now?" Nathan asked. "Why risk it? My staff would have spotted you eventually." Elias gave a dry chuckle. "I was counting on it. The garden has a way of pulling people where they belong." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your father was a man of control. Everything had to fit his version of order. But your mother, he paused, searching Nathan's face. She fought for what she loved, even when it cost her. Nathan's throat went dry. His father. The word alone tightened every muscle in his body. Don't speak about him, Nathan snapped. Elias didn't retreat. You don't know the whole of him. You've only lived in the shadow he built. You think your fortune, your walls of glass and stone, tell the story, but they don't. He tapped his chest lightly. The truth has been buried here in flesh and memory, not in vaults. Nathan's instinct screamed at him to walk away. Call security, have this man removed, and never hear from him again. But there was something in Elias's tone, aching, raw, that pinned him in place. What truth? Nathan whispered. Elias studied him for a long moment, as though testing whether Nathan was ready to hear. Then he leaned closer, his voice a thread. Your mother's love wasn't the kind your father wanted for her. The words struck hard, muddied and suggestive. Nathan's breath caught. Are you saying she was unfaithful? Elias looked away, jaw tightening. I'm saying love doesn't always bow to power. A rush of heat climbed Nathan's neck. His father had been ruthless, yes, but unfaithfulness. His mother, the woman who tucked him in at night with lullabies and whispered prayers, who never let go of his hand in public? No, impossible. And yet, the emerald ring gleamed in Nathan's mind like a shard of truth. Elias spoke again, softer. If you want answers, come back to the rose beds at midnight. I'll tell you what I can, if you're brave enough to listen. Nathan's fists clenched. Midnight, secrets, lies against the name Elridge. This was madness. And still, against every instinct, he felt a pull he couldn't name. He didn't know whether to expose Elias or follow him. That night, as the sky darkened over Napa Valley, Nathan stood at the window again, staring at the roses. And when the church bell from the nearby town tolled 12, he stepped outside. Elias was already waiting, and in his hands he held something more than the ring. The garden was silver with moonlight, every rosebed glistening as though painted with frost. Nathan's footsteps crunched against the gravel, each one heavier than the last. His estate was usually silent at this hour, yet tonight the night air hummed with something more than crickets and wind. It thrummed with anticipation. Elias stood by the old marble fountain, shoulders squared, the shadows cutting sharp lines across his face. In his hands, wrapped in a faded cloth, was a small wooden box. You came, Elias said, his voice steady but tinged with something almost like relief. Nathan kept his distance. I want answers, not riddles, not poetry. Truth. Elias nodded once, then placed the box carefully on the fountain's edge. He unfolded the cloth slowly, reverently, as though exposing something sacred. Inside lay a bundle of yellowed letters, tied with a blue ribbon, frayed with age. Nathan frowned. What is this? Your mother's words, Elias said softly. Words she never wanted sealed in a vault. Words she trusted me to keep safe. Nathan's pulse kicked. He reached forward hesitantly, then snatched the top letter. The handwriting was hers, curved, elegant, certain. He recognized it instantly, a sight he hadn't seen since he was 16. His throat closed as he whispered, This is real. The first letter was dated 9 months before his birth. He scanned it in silence, eyes darting across phrases that twisted his stomach. I fear Charles will never forgive me if he finds out. And, Elias, this child deserves truth one day, even if it costs me everything. Nathan's grip on the page tightened until the paper crinkled. He looked up, voice breaking. Why are you showing me this now? Elias met his eyes. Because the man you call father made sure you'd never know. He erased me from these grounds, stripped me of a name in your house, and told your mother silence was the only way you'd survive under him. Nathan staggered back, shaking his head. No, you're implying... Elias took a step closer, his weathered face caught in the pale glow of moonlight. I'm not implying, Nathan. His voice was steady, unyielding. I'm telling you, I am your father. The world seemed to tilt. Nathan's chest burned, air rushing in ragged gasps. That's impossible. My father, Charles Elridge, raised you as his heir, Elias said firmly. But blood doesn't lie. He forced me out before you were born, threatened your mother if she ever spoke my name again. I left with nothing but these letters, and this ring she slipped into my palm the night I was driven out. He touched the band through his glove, her promise that one day you'd know the truth. Nathan wanted to shout, to deny it outright, but the letters in his hands felt like burning coals. They were too real, too intimate. No one outside his mother's heart could have written them. He staggered back toward the fountain, hands trembling, breath uneven. His entire life, his wealth, his name, his identity, suddenly teetered on the edge of a truth he couldn't control. Elias's voice broke through the storm. You've been living in a cage, Nathan, built by a man who feared love, who feared me. And now you must decide whether you want to keep living his story or finally hear hers. Nathan's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his skull. His father's stern face flashed in his memory, the endless lectures about power, control, legacy, then his mother's gentle smile, the warmth of her hands. And now Elias, standing in moonlight with letters that might burn everything Nathan believed. Nathan's grip on the letter faltered. For the first time in his life, he didn't know who he was. The night wind stirred the roses, and for a split second, Nathan swore he could smell his mother's perfume in the air. And then Elias said something that shattered the silence. Your father's legacy isn't yours to keep, unless you choose it. Nathan stood frozen, the night pressing down on him like a weight. The letters trembled in his hands. His mind spun with images of boardrooms, polished marble floors, and his father's voice echoing endlessly about power, reputation, empire. Now those words felt hollow, brittle, compared to the fragile paper that smelled faintly of lavender and ink. His mother's truth, preserved in silence for 4 decades. You're asking me to believe that everything I've built, Nathan said, voice hoarse, is a lie. Elias's gaze softened. I'm not asking you to abandon your life. I'm asking you to see it clearly. Wealth and legacy are cages if you don't know who you are inside them. Nathan pressed the letters to his chest, torn between rage and yearning. And if I do, if I accept what you're saying, what then? You think I'll call a press conference? Tell the world that Charles Elridge wasn't my father? Elias shook his head. No, this isn't about headlines. It's about you, about freeing yourself from a man who never truly loved you, only what you represented. He leaned forward, voice low. And about honoring the love your mother carried for both of us, even when it cost her everything. Nathan turned away sharply, fighting the heat in his eyes. The fountain gurgled behind him, the sound mocking his turmoil. You want me to forgive you, to welcome you after 40 years. I don't expect forgiveness, Elias said. I expect the truth to hurt. It always does. But lies kill from the inside. Nathan's hand brushed the emerald ring, still glowing faintly under moonlight. His mother's ring, his mother's letters. The truth pulsed through him, undeniable and brutal. He spun back toward Elias, his voice cracking. If this is true, then where were you when I needed a father? When he was breaking me down day after day? When she died and His breath faltered. When I was alone. Elias's eyes glistened. I was here, outside these gates, watching from a distance, praying you'd survive him long enough to find me, and hating myself every single day for obeying his command to stay away. The rawness of the confession hit Nathan like a blow. He wanted to scream, to hit, to collapse. Instead, he stared at Elias, broken, torn. This changes everything, Nathan whispered. Elias shook his head gently. No, son, it changes nothing except how you see it. The word son landed deep, heavy, unwanted, yet undeniable. Nathan's chest seized, a war raging inside him. Could he ever accept this man as his blood, or was this just another cruel manipulation wrapped in sentiment? The choice loomed in front of him like fire. Step into it and risk burning away everything he thought he was. Stay back and live forever in the ashes of another man's story. Nathan clenched the letters until they nearly tore. The night seemed to hold its breath, waiting. If you're with us so far, tap like. What comes next changes everything. And then Elias whispered, almost to himself, but loud enough for Nathan to hear, "There's something else your mother left behind, something Charles never found." Nathan's pulse thundered in his ears. The letters had already shaken him to the core, but Elias' words promised more, a hidden piece of his mother that even Charles Elridge hadn't destroyed. "What do you mean?" Nathan demanded, stepping closer. "What did she leave behind?" Elias bent to the wooden box again. Beneath the letters, nestled in the cloth, was a small, weathered journal. Its leather cover was cracked, the strap nearly worn through. He held it out with both hands, reverent, as though presenting a holy relic. "This," Elias said, "is her diary, the one she never let Charles near. She gave it to me the night I was cast out. Said if the day ever came when her son was ready for the truth, this would guide him." Nathan's throat went dry. His hands trembled as he accepted it. The leather was warm, almost alive beneath his fingers. He opened it slowly, and the first page stopped his breath. For Nathan, when he is old enough to understand, the man who raises you may not be the one who gave you life, but the one who loves you. That is the father you will one day choose. The words blurred as Nathan's eyes filled. His mother's handwriting, deliberate and sure, cut through decades of silence. This proves it," Nathan whispered. "You're telling the truth." Elias nodded, voice low. "She never wanted you chained to Charles's shadow. She wanted you to know love was bigger than power, that you were born of it, even if you were raised without it." The garden seemed to close in around Nathan, the roses trembling in the night breeze, their perfume thick and dizzying. He could hear his father's voice in his head, sharp, commanding, the weight of an empire pressed into every word. Power is everything. Legacy is survival. And then his mother's voice, from memory and page alike. Love is the only legacy worth leaving. For the first time, the walls of his identity cracked wide open. Nathan staggered back a step. If the world learns about this, if anyone finds out who I really am, everything collapses. The board, the investors, the name— "Let it collapse," Elias interrupted, sudden steel in his tone, "because what rises from truth will outlast every stone Charles laid." Nathan stared at him, chest heaving. His whole life had been performance, smiles at galas, ruthless deals in boardrooms, carrying the Elridge name like both armor and shackle. And now, here was Elias, blood of his blood, handing him the chance to burn that legacy to the ground. But then, Elias added, voice almost breaking, "There's more. She left a letter for you, sealed, hidden in the old greenhouse, the one Charles ordered locked before you were old enough to walk." Nathan blinked. "The greenhouse? It's been abandoned for decades." Elias nodded. "Not abandoned, guarded by his silence." The weight of it pressed on Nathan like a storm. His entire life had been defined by walls his father built, and now, piece by piece, Elias was tearing them down. If the diary was real, if the greenhouse held a letter written just for him, then the truth wasn't finished. Nathan's hands clenched around the journal. His breath came fast, unsteady. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure if he was Nathan Elridge the billionaire or Nathan, son of Elias. The wind hissed through the vineyard, and Elias's eyes locked on his. "The real question," Elias said, voice steady, "is not whether you believe me. It's whether you're ready to hear her last words to you." The greenhouse loomed at the far edge of the property, its glass panes dull with decades of dust and ivy. Nathan hadn't stepped inside since childhood. His father had ordered it locked, claiming it was unsafe, unworthy of upkeep. Yet now, in the cool grip of night, the place radiated an energy that made the hairs on his arms rise. Elias walked a step behind him, silent, carrying a rusted key that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. When they reached the heavy iron latch, he slid it in with trembling hands. The lock resisted, groaned, then gave way with a snap that echoed through the vineyard like a gunshot. The door creaked open, and the scent of damp earth rushed out, moss, rot, and a faint sweetness that reminded Nathan of his mother's perfume. Moonlight poured through fractured panes, catching webs and broken pots. "This is where she came when she needed peace," Elias murmured. Charles never stepped inside, said flowers were a waste of time. Nathan stepped cautiously forward, his footsteps crunching against glass shards. His gaze roamed over wilted vines and forgotten tools. And then, in the far corner, beneath a long dead camellia tree, he saw it. A metal box, half buried in soil. His hands shook as he pulled it free. The box was small, dented, its hinges rusted. He hesitated, staring at it as though it might burn him. "Go on," Elias urged gently. Nathan opened it. Inside was a sealed envelope, edges yellowed but intact. On the front, in his mother's graceful handwriting, was a single line: "For my son, when he is ready." Nathan's breath caught. He tore it open carefully, pulling out a folded sheet. His eyes devoured the words, his mother's voice echoing with every line. "My Nathan, if you are reading this, then the truth has found you. You were born of love, not power. Your father is not the man who raised you, but the one who was driven away to protect you. Never doubt that you were wanted. Never doubt that you were cherished. And when the world tells you legacy is measured in money or marble, remember this: your true inheritance is love. Guard it, live it, and forgive if you can." Nathan's knees buckled. He sank against the wall of the greenhouse, the letter trembling in his grip. Tears blurred the ink as the weight of years came crashing down. Elias crouched beside him but didn't touch him. He only said softly, "She wanted you free, Nathan. Free from Charles, free from lies, free to be yourself." Nathan stared at the letter, his chest heaving. His whole life he had been an heir to power. But here, in this crumbling greenhouse, his mother had handed him a new inheritance. Fragile, human, unshakable. He looked at Elias, eyes blazing with conflict. "If I accept this, if I accept you, then everything I've ever been, everything I've built, it changes." Elias's voice broke, but he nodded. "Yes, it changes, but maybe it finally becomes real." Nathan's hand closed around the letter. He felt the crossroads in his chest like fire. Cling to the empire his father had forged, or step into the truth his mother had left behind. The night held its breath, and Nathan made his choice. But as he rose, clutching the letter, he heard footsteps crunching outside the greenhouse, approaching, deliberate, heavy. Someone else had followed them. The greenhouse door creaked, and Nathan spun, clutching the letter tight against his chest. Elias tensed, stepping instinctively in front of him. Through the crack of moonlight appeared a tall silhouette, broad-shouldered, familiar in its arrogance, even in shadow. "Who's there?" Nathan called, his voice sharp, though his throat burned. A guard stepped inside, one of the estate's oldest staff. He looked uneasy, eyes flicking between Nathan and Elias. "Sir, I was told to check this building. It was supposed to stay locked. Your father's orders." Even in death, Charles Elridge's commands lingered like iron chains. Nathan's jaw tightened. For 40 years, silence had been enforced here. Tonight, the silence had shattered. "It's open now," Nathan said evenly. "And it stays open." The guard hesitated, searching Nathan's face. Then with a small nod, he backed away into the night. The door clicked shut, leaving only the whisper of roses against glass. Nathan exhaled, trembling. He turned back to Elias, the letter still clutched like a lifeline. For the first time, he looked not at an intruder or a stranger, but at the man who had risked everything to give him truth. "You should have been here," Nathan whispered, his voice breaking. "But you weren't, and I don't know if I can forgive that." Elias's eyes shone, but he nodded. "I'll accept whatever you give me, even nothing. But at least you know now. At least you're free." Nathan's chest ached. He looked around the crumbling greenhouse, saw the vines breaking through glass, the flowers that had once been his mother's sanctuary, and he realized this wasn't a place of endings, it was a place of beginnings. He pressed the letter flat against his heart. "You're right, I've lived in his shadow long enough. I don't know what happens next, but I won't keep carrying his legacy, not his way." Elias's breath hitched. "Then you've already chosen." Nathan reached out, hesitant, then placed his hand over Elias's. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement, blood to blood, truth to truth. For the first time in decades, Nathan felt lighter. The roses stirred in the breeze, releasing a fragrance so faint and familiar, it almost broke him. His mother's presence lingered in the air, not as a ghost, but as a promise. And when Nathan finally stepped out of the greenhouse, dawn was breaking over the vineyard, painting the sky in gold and crimson. The day ahead would demand answers, decisions, risks. But for once, he didn't feel alone. He had his mother's words. He had the truth. He had a choice. And in the quiet footsteps beside him, he had a father, whether he was ready to call him that or not. Final image. Nathan, standing at the vineyard's edge, sunrise washing his face, the emerald ring glinting on his finger as he folds his Mother S letter close to his chest. Final, personalized viewer engagement. What would you have done in Nathan's place? Tell us below. If this gave you hope today, share it with someone who needs it.